to my channel. So today we are covering the case of Elvis Presley. Now I think this case is going to be very, very interesting for the reason that a lot of us have a perception of what we think of Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll, the things that he's did from the day now where he started within his career, but also the darker side, the side that we don't speak about as much and the side that we maybe find socially acceptable 50 years ago, but do we find it socially acceptable now? Should he still be credited as a great actor, a great singer, king of rock and roll, or should we be looking more at the side of his tendencies and the things that he got away with, and because he was Elvis Presley, is that why he got away with it? Or was it socially acceptable? And this is what I have found with this case, is that a lot of people are on the fence because they're saying, but back then it was different. I get that, but it's still illegal as such. So let's dive in. As always, I'm going to do the spirit box at the end of this as well, which I think will be very, very interesting. But let's talk some facts. Let's talk about the case first, and we'll take it from there. Aaron Presley was born on the 8th of January 1935. Now, Elvis was actually a twin. He had a twin brother called Jesse who died at birth. They were born to Gladys, his mother, and Vernon Presley. Now, that was the only children that Gladys and Vernon had. In the end, Elvis was an only child due to the fact of his twin brother being stillborn in Mississippi. And when he was 13, they relocated to Memphis, Tennessee. When he was 13, his music career began in 1954. Now, you've got to remember, in 1954, it's not the way it is now. You could get away with certain performances. Back then, people were very straight-laced, very traditional, and a lot of people frowned upon any sort of kind of sexual dancing, and that was the first thing Elvis done, was brought controversy, which probably kept him in the spotlight at that point as well. Now, he did release his first single, Heartbreak Hotel, and that came out in 1956. Now, he was managed by Tom Parker for over 2 decades. In November 1956, Elvis made his film debut. Now, he actually signed up to 30 films for over 9 years, which then took him out of the singing career tender, and in 1958 he was called up to the military services for 2 years. Now, he was under Parker's management, so as soon as he came back from the military, he was put straight into Hollywood, where he starred in a lot more films. I'll let you see some just now. What I did find interesting is, and since I've been doing this case, I would love to sit and watch some of the films. You guys have been messaging to find out when this case has been coming out, but it is my plan after this to have a look at a few of the films as well, because before I started doing this case, I was more thinking king of rock and roll, music. But looking back, he spent 9 years doing films before he actually made a comeback to do his actual singing career.
One-man concert? I'm kind of sorry you told me about it now. I won't sleep a wink. I'm that scared.
Scared? Relax. Learn to live with success.
Most of the 1960s in films, but fun fact, he soundtracked most of the films that he was in at that time. That he was in was Jailhouse Rock, Viva Las Vegas, Blue Hawaii. Check them out. Now, also, there is an Amazon documentary for Loving Elvis, and it's basically all the girlfriends that he had. It's very, very interesting. We are going to come on to it through the case, but if you're looking for something to watch more recent, definitely look on Amazon Prime, and it's Loving Elvis, but it's worth a check out. This is the Memphis Mafia. This is Elvis's entourage. That was Elvis's entourage. They were the people who were with him 24/7, and that was Billy Smith, who was Elvis's cousin, Marty Lacker, the accountant, Lamar Tyke, security chief, Sonny West, personal bodyguard, Jerry Skillett, personal bodyguard, Larry Gaylor, the hairdresser and spiritual guide. Now, this was really a group of Elvis's true friends, but again, in the same token, they were still enabling certain behaviours. Now, this was before the drugs, before anything else like that. They were bringing Elvis girls in. Whatever Elvis said went, and obviously money talks, power speaks. But his stepbrother had said at the time it made him sick that the liking that Elvis had for young girls. He did say that Elvis held a house party with 7 men and 152 women. Again, these guys in these documentaries speaking about it speak now as if they're disgusted, but we've got to remember they just played a bigger part as much as what Elvis did, if not more of a part, because they enabled it. Like, again, he was obviously too famous to phone a girl and say, I want to see you, so he was getting other people to do it, all these different things. So they were enablers, but in their documentary, they do say that his liking for young girls was pretty much very disgusting, and that it happened a lot more than spoke out at that time, or when, as we get into it in a second, some of the girls' dads were dropping them off at the house at Graceland to send them to Elvis. Like, what the fuck, your own child? Sorry for swearing. Trigger warning. But this case really blows my mind, especially with the 50s, the 60s, and coming out to a generation now where he'd be sitting next to R. Kelly in the jail. Like, he'd been a cell for doing what he's done. But when you put it online, like I put a post up a few weeks ago to say that I was going to be touching on this case, I had a lot of people saying, it's nonsense, it's this, it's that. Why would so many people lie? But also, there's a lot of victims out there that probably don't even think they're victims. They still think they're lucky because they went with Elvis, when in reality, were you lucky or were you groomed? And that's what we're about to come on to about it, the women of Elvis, because that's what brought us to do this case in the first place. Until that point, I didn't actually know what age Priscilla was when Elvis met her. I didn't know the backstory. She was 14. And he promised her dad, he brought her from Germany to live at Graceland, and he promised her dad that he would take care of her and that he would marry her. Now, Priscilla's book says that she didn't have sex with him until they got married. We'll get to it in the spirit box. Like, side note, don't know so much. I think that was more of a safety net because it tells you they knew it was wrong. She probably even knew it was wrong, but again, if it is the case and she's been groomed, he made a promise to her dad, but in this time as well, he always had a girlfriend, he always had other ladies round about him. So effectively at the beginning, Priscilla was living in Graceland while Elvis was out doing tours, he was away having a girlfriend everywhere. I don't think Priscilla really cared at that point, but it was all young girls. And they did not marry till Priscilla was 22. And a lot of people round about Elvis said the reason they didn't marry was that he didn't want to marry her, but because he'd made such a promise to her father, he felt under pressure to do this. Now, he actually had a partner and a girlfriend on the day of his wedding to Priscilla, and he didn't tell the lady in the morning of the wedding. He went and visited her, told her that he loved her and things like that, and then he went and married Priscilla. And later on that day, that lady actually found out that he was there to say, I'm getting married, this is what's happening. So even in the morning of the wedding, he wasn't committed to Priscilla, he didn't particularly want to be with her. Now again, this is all just coming from documentaries and friends and people in round about Elvis at the time. But apparently the love of Elvis's life was Linda. She had been with him the longest. Now, she was with Elvis at a time when he was at probably his highest within his career. This was Priscilla at 16, writing to Elvis when he was in the military.
To the Aladdin Hotel and retired with the wedding set for early that same morning. There were only 14 people at the actual wedding, but a huge reception and press conference followed, and almost immediately the news was flashed around the world that Elvis Presley had been married. They were the picture of true love. Elvis was the happiest I'd seen him in a long, long time, and it was a dream come true for Priscilla. A 5-foot wedding cake and a massive diamond ring that Elvis...
Priscilla, before we go into Linda Thompson, it was said that the song Caught in a Trap was connected to the fact that he felt trapped to marry Priscilla. Now, again, don't know what truth's in that, but this was his stepbrother that had said this. Now, around Linda Thompson, she had been with Elvis the longest, 4.5 years. She said in that 4.5 years that she made 4 hospital visits, that they were watching him round the clock. He was very erratic, he had a very, very bad temper. He was never abusive directly to her. But she said that, now it is the famous line that he shot televisions and things like that. She said it happened to her twice the whole time that she was with Elvis. One of the reasons that she left Elvis was because she'd already heard and got wind that he had met someone else and he was planning on moving them to Graceland. And he actually said to Linda Thompson when he brought a plane in, now Elvis had his own planes, he brought a plane in from Memphis and called Linda and said to her, I've brought a plane in just for you, trying to make her feel special because she was heading back the way. And she called him out and said, you haven't, you've brought someone back here to live with you. And he said, no, and I need you to always remember, like, even when people say that I don't, you'll be my one true love, I've always loved you. And that was actually the last time that Linda Thompson seen Elvis, was when she got on that plane to head back home. And she said that she made the decision. And the boys, the Memphis Mafia, said that he was absolutely devastated when Linda left him. But again, he was never willing to give up the other women. He, from day dot, had always had a girlfriend on the go. They blame his mum's death. His mum had died. He was very close to Gladys. So a lot of people say that it was down to the trauma of losing his mum, that he took a liking for young girls. He wanted to stay in his childhood. And the next story I'm coming on to with Kathy Tatum. Now, Kathy was a young girl outside Graceland. She was barely 16. And her and her sister were out there. The Memphis Mafia was out. Elvis was out there for about an hour. And he actually said to her, would you like to come in? I'm going to shut the gates. And she said she asked her sister, because he said, what age are you? And she said 18. Her sister said she's not, she's 16. Elvis said, that's fine. He ended up saying to her, I've dated underage girls before. It reminds me of my childhood. It takes me back. So he'd already expressed this type of tendency to me. He was due to go on tour, and he had promised that he would get in touch when he got back. Now, you've got to remember, back then, they didn't have the mobile phones the way it's so easy now to access or communicate with someone. But when he did come back, he did contact her. And he invited her to Graceland, and she said at that point he was still married to Priscilla, but she wasn't at Graceland. Apparently she'd only spent 6 months there at a time. Now, when she went there, he took her down to the basement, and the Memphis Mafia had said that he was down in the basement with her for hours, to the point his stepbrother eventually went down to see what was going on, and apparently nothing had happened. She never went the full way with him. But he was telling her how much he loved her, and he was offering her the world. And again, she said that when he did push it too far, when she said stop, he stopped. But again, at this point, she was barely 16. But these guys aided that. They enabled that. They brought this girl in. They left her down the basement for hours before going down. He then took her and showered her with gifts. Now, for me, I would say that was grooming. In the end, that didn't last, but it was more because he wanted her to wait. He was still with Priscilla at the time, and she eventually said no. He'd also asked her to live at Graceland, and she'd said no as well. This is Linda Thompson and Elvis. This is Kathy Tatum. She's another lady that's done a book. Why did Elvis get such a free pass? There's no conspiracy, like, oh, he was in with the police or anything like that. It was nothing like that at all. It was just everything was in plain sight and nobody cared. And again, we go back to that generational side of things. Now, Elvis's last partner was Ginger Aldgren, and she claimed to be engaged to Elvis. Now, it's a bit conflicting because the Memphis Mafia have said that they never believed that Elvis would get married, but she had said that within a week he'd asked to marry her. They had been together for quite a little while, a good few months. Now, we're going to get into the last 24 hours just before Elvis died, just shortly, but she was the last lady with Elvis. And at the very start of Elvis's death, there was a lot of blame game and finger pointing. Now, the reason for that was that everyone around Elvis said that there was an unwritten rule that someone always had to be with him because he was so induced with drugs at the most of times. Someone had to be there just in case something happened, whether he fell. Now, bearing in mind, he was a very high-priced commodity because of the tours, so he had to be looked after. The manager that Elvis had was just working him into the bone. He didn't really care for Elvis. He had a massive gambling problem where he had racked up nearly 1.5 million of gambling within 4 hours. He'd been in Vegas one night where a lot of people had witnessed it, so they knew that Elvis's manager was going to be squeezing everything out of him the best that he can. So again, the drugs suited his manager for that reason, because they could make Elvis do what they had to make him do. Now, when he had sacked the two boys from the Memphis Mafia, Red and Sonny they were called, they decided to write a book, and it was called Elvis, What Happened. Now, they were going to expose Elvis for his liking for young girls, his drug abuse, and a few other incidents that had happened. Now, they'd said, this book's fact, we were there, and they said the reason they were doing it was because they wanted Elvis to see his issues face on. If he's seen his issues face on, he might then take accountability and realise what's going on. Now, again, from them being friends from school, you can kind of understand that, but Elvis was devastated when this book came out because his trademark was his image. the way people thought of him. He cared what people thought. You've seen a lot of his videos saying, I'm here to make the fans happy, I'm here to make the fans happy. So he was a big people pleaser, which was probably part of the problem. But again, he was very, very uptight about this book coming out. He was devastated. He was in denial. So he just kept saying, but I loved these people, I looked after them, why would they do this to me? But you have to remember, he had got his dad to sack those 2 people without any kind of rhyme or reason, other than the fact they knew they were saying to Elvis, look, this is getting too much. Obviously, someone had to be with Elvis all the time. Now, he was in his 40s at this point. He was very fat. Again, it's quoted from the documentary. He didn't feel good in his cell in any way whatsoever. But at this point, he was with Ginger Oldman. Now, he done a live concert, and apparently she was quite insecure. And this came directly from her in the documentary, where he'd shouted out in the concert, like, this is my girlfriend Ginger. Now, he'd never done that before. So I can imagine that would make a lot of people believe that he was really, really in love. But apparently, Elvis had always said, I'm either 60% and I'm 60% happy or 40% happy, but I've never been 100% happy. Do you know, putting everything else to the side, I think that is such a good way to decide on life, like 40%, 60%. You can be kind of happy, but you're not truly happy. So I think he was looking for that woman in his life. Obviously, he had his daughter, Lisa Marie, who we've not really touched on. Now, the reason I've not really touched on that is only because I'm coming on to it now. One of the reasons Priscilla and Elvis apparently divorced and split up was after Priscilla had Lisa Marie, Elvis didn't want to have sex with her. He had sex with her once. That tells me Elvis had a thing for pure souls, innocence. Maybe things, again, that don't sit well with myself personally, but from seeing posts on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter and social media, there's a lot of people who defend this man even though they know what he's done. That baffles me, absolutely baffles me. Maybe it's because I wasn't part of that era. I was never a big fan of Elvis. But it's just like a lot of things that are playing out in media presently. We put celebrities, artists, actors, actresses onto a pedestal, and we create an expectation of what we think they are. And then when they're not, we either feel very let down, which most people would walk away from a situation like that. But then you have the minute few that will still back this person up. And that's where the Memphis Mafia had said, like, he would have got away with anything. He wanted to murder. Now, Priscilla ran off with a karate instructor from Hawaii that was on their honeymoon, and apparently Elvis had put a hit out on him, but it was to do with his ego. He didn't care about Priscilla. He just cared that someone else had came in and maybe made her happy, whether it suited him to know that was his comfort blanket at home. We're coming on in a second, but I don't truly believe Priscilla was the love of his life, and I don't think he ever thought that either. I don't think Elvis had a love of his life. I could probably say, by looking at the documentaries, Linda Thompson would probably be the closest thing to that. But all these women were infatuated by him. Even now, like, Linda Thompson wrote a book, Priscilla's wrote a book. Like, it's nuts when really they're outing him for being a paedophile. If he's went with somebody under the age of 16, he is a paedophile. But again, we're talking about it, we're doing it right now on YouTube, but it just baffles me. Like, where's everybody's moral compass? Where's that went to? Is it because it's Elvis? Did he just get away with that? That's the reason I can't wait to do the spirit box, and we're just about to come on to it, so don't worry. Did he have a drug overdose, or did he commit suicide? Because again, leading up to it, that book came out, he was very, very depressed and devastated. He was very, very aware of how it was changing his image, and he was dreading going on tour because of that. He had a conversation with his stepbrother the day before his stepbrother left. His stepbrother was coming back on the Tuesday, and he basically said to him, next time I see you, I'm going to be in a higher place. That tells me that he had a plan. And sadly, you usually find when someone takes their own life, we automatically say, but I didn't see it coming. Like, why did that happen? Like, they seemed okay. Because sometimes it can be a relief to people that they've decided to do that, and that's why they become happier, and that's why we do miss the signs. And again, that could have been the case with Elvis Presley. Ginger kind of got the blame at the beginning. A lot of people were pointing the finger saying, why didn't you get up with him? Like, we told you. But she said never once was she told to look after Elvis in that way. And she said that it was normal, the things that he was doing, and she did say he was a young, healthy man. Now, we know he wasn't healthy. He was young, but he wasn't healthy. Sadly, as we all know, Elvis did pass away, and all these women have came forward Now, I was going to add a little bit into this case, but I've chose not to because there's not enough fact around it. But there is stories that Elvis has 7 other children who were kept out of Hollywood altogether and kept out the kind of circus or the media that they're called. I believe 3 children possibly came from Elvis, but I don't believe 7. Are we ready to do the spirit box? Now, if you have never been part of the spirit box, do not panic. It is a very noisy and it can give you a little bit of a sore head. It takes time to adjust to it. But what I ask you to do is comment below what you hear. And what you usually find is it builds a really good picture for other people where you get into the comments and start thinking, oh, that makes sense. We have done it on the Madeleine McCann case. A lot came out in the spirit box for the Madeleine McCann that then took us to the current location that the police were in most recently. So just know with the spirit box, it's very unpredictable, but I feel it's the best thing to give answers, especially around spirit world, especially around cases like this in Elvis Presley. So what I'd suggest is, if you are a little bit paranoid about it, please start burning sage now. Sit back, relax. Put your headphones in if you can. If you can't, do not panic. If you want to skip this bit, I understand that as well. I hope you have enjoyed the case. I'm going to get you to subscribe. Remember, ring the bell because, again, it helps us with the channel. But we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's Christie's Readings across the board. And thank you for watching if you've watched up to this point. As I said, we've got a new setup. Excuse me, sorry. We have a new camera, a new mic. And it's just getting used to it, so apologies if the lighting's rubbish or this video's a wee bit mismatched compared to normal videos, but I'm trying to educate myself as well as doing everything else that we're doing at the moment. So again, thank you for watching, but let's get down to the spirit box. Autopsy, I thought it was worth adding this in. They found 9 different prescription drugs. They also found sleeping pills, but he'd built up a tolerance, which meant he would have taken more antidepressants and painkillers. Now, on the day that he passed, he'd already been complaining to Ginger that he couldn't get to sleep. So again, we have to be open-minded that there's a chance that it could be an overdose. But now I'm going to give you the spirit box and I'm going to give you exactly what I think. Uses the EMF meter. Now, it might play up a little bit because we've got so much going on round about here, but as you can see, it's green just now. So fingers crossed that it stays that way. I wonder where I can put this for you, so we'll sort it, don't worry. And we also have the spirit box. Now I've got the mic, I'm going to turn it up a little bit so that we can pop this on. And what I'll do is I'll hold this at this side and we'll ask the spirit box questions. Please comment below because it's harder for myself to hear it. It's also better when you're watching it back. Then I seem to get a lot more then. But I'm going to ask all the questions that I can. And any other questions you think we should ask, we can do a part 2 at some point. I'm going to start doing these with the other cases. Like wee updates for them because I know you're looking for an update on the Luke Mitchell case. And there is another one as well, but we'll have a look into it. So, right, let's get started. Spirit, if Elvis is with us or he has anything to say to us, can you bring him through the spirit box? Use my energy if you have to. Can you use the EMF meter? No. Why not? Did you hear that? Hey, darling. Is Elvis Presley a paedophile? No.
Maria, I was.
Can you use the EMF meter? Spirit, can you use the EMF meter if you're here? Give me a sign. Can you make it go red? What I'm going to do is, it's better to leave this on. I just need to find somewhere to prop this for you guys. Right, hold on, let's see. You guys can see that there. There we go. Right, okay. Elvis, who was your true love? Was Linda your true love? Or Susap? I heard something there and it was very, very clear. Susap? We need to Google that. Google that and find out. Hillary? Elvis, did you have a fascination with young girls?
No.
It was the Coke. Did you hear that? Will more victims come forward regarding Elvis Presley? You're damn right. It was all down to luck. Why was it all down to luck? Does Elvis have more children than Lisa Marie Presley? Who was on the run? The images. Oh, right, okay, I'm going to cut this in a minute. Elvis, do you have anything to say to us or give us anything that we don't already know? Guys, I'm going to give you my conclusion on it, alright? I think you all maybe already know. But what I do think is, again, 1950s, 60s, it's a very, very grey area, but it doesn't mean that it's right. And that, again, that's what I found within social media when we spoke about this case, or I've said, I think there's a chance Elvis could be a paedophile. I don't think there's a chance I can say categorically he is a paedophile. There is witnesses that came forward that have said that he has been with them under the age of 16. So why do we gratify something like that? Why do we still think that it's okay, or it was socially acceptable back then because people married younger? It didn't mean it was right. Now, if you look at the other cases that we've touched upon, Prince Andrew, Epstein, the royals, that type of behaviour was rife back then, and now it makes complete and utter sense, because if you had someone so big like Elvis Presley portraying that behaviour out, especially around women and men. The women were glad to have him, the men wanted to be him, so if they couldn't be them, they were going to behave like him. So did that mean then they were looking for young girls as well? Because again, they were standing outside Graceland, these girls, and it was very easy to be picked up and taken into Graceland. And the fact that one of the, and I'm going to call them victims because they are victims, whether they think it or not, but if you hear their story, that's grooming, buying the clothes, buying the car. The girl's dad dropped her off at Elvis Presley's house when she was 14 years of age to a 39-year-old man. Would you drop your child at 14 off at a 39-year-old man's house, male or female? No, you wouldn't. Would you find it acceptable? Highly unlikely that you would. And again, that's the sad reality of the generational cycles that we speak about on the daily through mental health and things like that. We just keep doing the same cycle. But it's all right. They said it was all right back then. It's not all right for us, but it was okay for them. No, it wasn't. These people were being groomed, and all because he had money, had fame, had his pick at every lady. And that's the baffling part. He could have had anybody, and he still chose young girls. He could not even sleep with his wife after she had her child because his tendencies weren't built like that. We speak about it often, tendencies, and we like to think that people can change, but in things like that, I genuinely don't believe people do change. That's something deep rooted. I do feel his mother's death had something to do with it, but psychically I get his mum wrapped him up in cotton wool and probably enabled the situation. She brought Priscilla in, she wanted Priscilla there. Priscilla was 14, he was 24 at the time. Like, it's nuts. Could you imagine having a 24-year-old son and their 14-year-old girlfriend coming to live with you? But again, he was a king of pop or rock and roll. He was the boss, but was he? And I think, again, that's where, getting into this day and age, we are looking at celebrities, the recent things. Philip Schofield, I done a prediction way back last year. Nobody believed me. They were like, no, he's lovely. Like, he's a good morning presenter, full of positivity. He's come out as being gay. No, because he was probably going to get outed, and that's what I'm coming on to with Elvis Presley. I truly believe, and I'm actually going to ask the Spirit Box while we finish this before I actually say, and I think you'll know what I'm going to say on it. Spirit, can you tell me if Elvis died of an overdose or committed suicide? Suicide. Does Ginger know that you were going to take your own life, or did she have an idea that you were going to take your own life? She was there. I strongly believe that Elvis couldn't deal with the outing of his taste for young girls. He didn't want people to know his image around drugs, even though, and this is the worst part of addiction, when someone has that illness, they're the last person to see that illness is shown out in them. Everybody else has already seen it. So Elvis didn't think that people could see exactly what was going on. They said that when they called the 999 that day, that's when they came clean and said, we think it's an overdose. It was the first time they'd actually said that out loud. That is absolutely nuts. I hope you have enjoyed the case. As I said, my predictions are that it's suicide. I do believe in the next 7 years there's going to be a turning point with the Elvis legacy, and I do see a lot of changes coming in. I want to see you're always going to have your majority and minority. The majority is going to be the younger generation, where we've been brought into this. I'm saying we, kidding myself there, but we're made to believe that it is wrong, because of course it's wrong. It's illegal. Anybody under the age of 16, and if you're bearing on the age of 16 a 39-year-old man, it's still not right. It's completely wrong in every way. I think that the next 5 to 7 years we're going to hear something more round about that. I do feel we're going to hear about 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. We have already heard a lot about Lisa Marie Presley, that she was swapped over or something. I had seen a little bit about it. I don't believe that. I feel Lisa Marie Presley was Lisa Marie Presley. She was Elvis's daughter. I don't feel for a minute that this other person was taken into security who claimed to be the real Lisa Marie. I think Priscilla was never the love of Elvis's life. I just don't see it. I think the closest one would have been Linda Thompson. I do agree with the documentary, but I don't think he loved anybody. I don't think he knew how to. I think he was so infatuated by his childhood. People can live in the past, but can be very stuck in the past. It can then project out behaviours. And I think he was a victim of drug abuse, bad mental health, bad body health in general. And it's really, really sad, because if you see him at the start of his career, you can see he was a really good looking man. But I think when you see past that and hear all the stories and what people were saying, it really makes you look at them in a different light. I know it made me look at them in a different light. Anyway, we're all shook up. I hope you have enjoyed the case. Again, thank you for constantly messaging to remind me to do it. I'm getting round to it. The page is going back to normal. The channel's going back to normal from the start of September. I finish up now. And I'm going to try and do a few cases while on holiday and while off, just to keep the channel going. So please subscribe. Thank you again for continuously supporting us. Commenting, liking, all these things that help us and just keep everything relevant. I know you love the crime cases, but it means a lot to me as well. It makes me do my work properly and research it properly, because I want you guys to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it. So thank you so much. We are on Christie's Readings on Facebook, Instagram. I do readings. If you just check out the Facebook and Instagram page, that's more what the pages are about, but we'll keep this directly for the crime cases for today. So yeah, I hope you all stay safe, take care, sleep well, remember and burn your sage, because we've been on the spirit box, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one. Click that subscribe button, you know you want to. Thanks for watching, guys.